Hi friends, I'm Gio. This is a story about loss, second chances, and the lasagna that brought it all together. Let's get started. I held the glass of champagne and wondered where my life went wrong. I took a last look at our wedding picture, Taylor and Contessa Blair. We looked like kids playing dress-up instead of adults just starting our lives. We were only 19 then. The silence in our two-bedroom apartment reflected how empty our marriage had become. Alone wasn't so bad. It beat living with my wife. Outside, a siren rumbled through the Pittsburgh early night. Our 5th anniversary was tonight. 5 years ago we had been dancing, celebrating, making our first toast as newlyweds. We used to love each other. Not anymore. Connie is out with her girlfriends partying. Kind of shows how much she thinks of our marriage. She hates being called Connie. Demands everyone call her Contessa. I twiddled the little groom and bride in my hands. They topped our wedding cake, a plastic reminder of love and cherish, and all the other lies. Tonight was her last chance to show we were a priority. I'd gone all out. I'd made my famous pepperoni and sausage lasagna with the spicy Arrabbiata sauce, had wiped taper candles currently burning down, their molten wax congealing on the table. A cake with 5 candles sat next to the lasagna, and I read, "Happy Anniversary." The champagne, a Taittinger Brut Reserve, imported from Champagne, France. Only the finest for our anniversary. I drank it alone, the bite of the bubble surprisingly lifting my mood. Tonight was meant to be a surprise. It wasn't, at least to me. Contessa's text arrived 10 minutes ago and read, "Out with the girls. Vend me $500. "It's our anniversary, baby. Made dinner. Got you a present. I'm waiting for you." "Let's do it tomorrow. I need $500. I replied, "Have a good time," and never sent the money. Contessa had just signed the death certificate to our marriage. I inhaled the scent of the spicy pepperoni, the waxy fragrance of the candles, and the chocolate smell of the cake. Her present lay on her plate, a pair of tickets to a Taylor Swift concert in D.C. Contessa loved Taylor Swift, considering herself a Swiftie. I'd saved for months to be able to afford those. We used to joke that she only married me for my name, Taylor, just like her idol. I retrieved the notebook from my backpack and made a simple note. April 15, made dinner for our anniversary. Contessa went out with her girlfriends. It's been 157 days since we last kissed. 120 days since she last said thank you. 119 since we last hugged. And 180 days since we last were intimate. It's also the same day the Titanic sank. She always said things like, "I'm tired, men are so needy," and gave me her famous eye roll. Not just for intimacy, but for conversations, for a simple taco run, even a walk around the block. My notebook included things like, every time I suggested counseling, 3. Every time she had a girls' night out, 27, 28 with tonight. Every time I tried to talk to her, 34. Every time she worked late, 92. And every time she called me useless, spineless, inadequate, a well-trained dog, etc., especially in front of her friends, 437. I started keeping track of life's little milestones 6 months ago with a promise. Once I arrived at day 181 for no intimacy, or day 500 for snide comments, I'd call it quits. Time to head out the door. No marriage was worth this. The drift in our marriage had become continental. A second text from Contessa. Venmo me $500. It's an emergency. My card won't work. Of course it didn't. I canceled the account this morning. Was it petty of me not to tell her? I deleted the text. The food can rot, the candles can burn to nothing, and the wax can harden on the table, but the cake will still be good, if you dig the wax out. I'm petty, and don't care what anybody thinks. Working room by room, everything I owned went into a suitcase, a large bag, or my backpack. It took only an hour. I had planned for this day, getting rid of almost everything except what I could fit into my car. Contessa never noticed. Speaking of which, she texted again. Where's the money? Didn't you get my text? I need it right now. Ignoring a text never felt so good. I used to think I was the problem. A month ago, I woke from a dream in which a xenomorph with Contessa's face chased me around an abandoned space station screaming, "Sit up and beg." I knew what I had to do. Finances split. Taylor Swift tickets in my pocket. I left the receipt on the table. Hell, another proud, petty moment. Loved to see her face when she realized what I had found, and she would never have. One last check online to make sure our finances were split 50-50. I changed the online passcode, just because, canceled all the auto-pays to be annoying, left my wedding ring and house key stuck into the cake to show her I was done being her spatula, arranged a bunch of blankets and pillows under the covers to pretend I was still in bed, unplugged the alarm clock and hit it, clicked all the circuit breakers to turn off the power to the entire apartment, locked up in the total darkness, deleted the tracking app Contessa insisted I use, and drove into the sunset with my practical Toyota Corolla. It's silver, blends into everything, kind of like me. It was long past when the sun went down, but I drove west anyway, radio blaring Big God by Florence and the Machine. With a quick tap, I locked in cruise control 5 above the limit. Freedom couldn't come fast enough. Just to be spiteful, I left hard copies of my accounting on the table, including a note explaining that I refused to roll over, sit up, catch a frisbee, or beg ever again. Let's see how well she handles life without my paycheck to fund her expensive shoe collection, let alone pay rent. Besides, I had the original book and digital copies. Don't push me, world. This boy has a phone and is not afraid to use it. I had one regret, and only one. I never tried the anniversary cake, chocolate pineapple upside down cake. It looked good and smelled like escape itself. Around 2 a.m, I stopped at an all-night diner in Elyria, Ohio, about 150 miles from Pittsburgh. I ordered black coffee and a slice of bittersweet cake for one. As the waitress shuffled away, my mind slipped sideways into imagining. The waitress, now with a xenomorph's head and Contessa's expression, yelled toward the kitchen, "Harvey, we need a bittersweet cake for one. Divorce in progress." From the back came the chef's gruff voice. "Order 347, served cold with a side of regret." In my head, the menu read, "Bittersweet cake for one." A dense, dark chocolate layer cake, frosted in silence, garnished with candied orange peel, bright but bitter to the core. Optional side of vanilla ice cream, melted before it arrives. Best enjoy while staring out the window and reconsidering your entire relationship. Plated on a thick ceramic plate, slightly chipped, paper doily, fork resting just off center, one napkin, slightly used, Billie Holiday crackling from the jukebox in the background. The waitress, still part space monster, part ex-wife, set the cake down with clawed hands and wiped them on a splattered apron. "Sweetheart, you want that warmed up?" The jukebox murmured to life with "Run" by Miranda Lambert. I shook my head. No, it's perfect just like this. And then I blinked, and I was back, still at the table, still upright, apparently not drooling. The real waitress smiled at me and topped off my coffee. Must have been some dream, sweetheart. Want that warmed up? The jukebox, still spinning, softly played Run. I nodded and rubbed the sleep from my eyes. Too early for breakfast? My phone read 3:17. 5 new texts, all from Contessa. Variations on a theme. Why aren't you sending me money? Good. She hadn't gotten home yet. I ate breakfast. Steak, eggs, and cottage cheese laced with more coffee, paid, and drove. Destination, Salt Lake City. I'd transferred from one Monarch Imperial hotel to another in the chain, one as far from Pittsburgh as was available at the time, one so far Contessa won't follow me. I drove until 8, then holed up in a cheap motel to sleep, paying cash. About 6 that night, I was in another diner when the next text came. Contessa, what is the meaning of this? You can't divorce me. She'd finally been served. I sipped my coffee, forcing my shoulders to relax. I didn't respond. She called. I muted my phone and watched as text after text, call after call came in. She must have realized I was gone and never coming back. On her 15th text, "You're upset because I went out with my friends? Give me a chance to explain." I responded with the simple, "Do the math. I gave you 1,169 chances over the last 6 months. I sent her the digital copies of the notebook, all 27 pages, with another text. Since you can't read anything not on a phone, look at these. This is why I'm divorcing you." One of her friends texted me next. I sent her copies of the accounting. She never texted back. Later that night, her mom tried calling and eventually texted. I sent her copies of the accounting. She never texted back. Every person she got to contact me, dad, sister, another one of her friends, a guy I'd never heard of, I sent each one all the pages. I'd had enough. I explained everything on Facebook and posted the accounting. By midnight, my phone was blessedly quiet. The next day, I arrived at the halfway point, Omaha, Nebraska. I stopped at a faded diner with a flickering neon sign named Myrtle's Dine and Dash. The waitress knew every trucker who had come by here in the last month and gossiped about them, had a name tag that read Dot, and said she couldn't decide if I was running away from something or running toward. I replied, both. She served me overdone eggs, coffee too sweet, and ironically, a slice of today's daily special. Bittersweet cake for one. For real this time. Dark chocolate with darker chocolate frosting with a kick of coffee flavoring for intensity. And dark chocolate swirls on top. I ordered that just because. The motel room I slept in smelled like cigarettes and whiskey. I don't remember falling asleep. Long drives do that to me. I do remember my phone buzzing, waking me from a dream about cracked teacups and chocolate cake. Without thinking, I answered. "Make it quick, I'm sleeping." "Where are you?" said a woman's voice I didn't recognize. "Who is this?" "One of Contessa's friends. I was with her when she came home Sunday morning. I had to pay for the Uber because she didn't have any money. You owe me." "Not happening. Contessa with you?" "I left," she said. "She's hysterical. Says you made those stats up. Did you?" "Nope. God's own truth. What happened?" A pause. "She went home with some guy, really buff, called me to come get her because she couldn't get into her account. Card kept getting declined or something. Guy dumped her before they could get frisky. I canceled the card to stop her from leeching." She snorted. We got to the apartment and it was dark. No power anywhere. She called the landlord, and he said he'd come by in the morning. Well, we used our phones as flashlights and saw the dinner you'd made, rotting on the table, and the cake, and the melted candles. We read the pages you'd left, and she started ugly crying. Not because she was sad. She was furious. She went to find you, and you were sleeping in the bedroom. She started screaming at you, did that for 15 minutes until she realized it was just a pile of clothes. Her friend began chuckling. Honestly, I don't know why you didn't leave years ago. Did she find the ring? I asked. She did, and that's when she became hysterical. She started throwing things. Cake, lasagna, the last of the champagne. Bottle broke on the wall and got all over your couch. She can keep it. She tried calling you, but you never answered. She got me and her friends, even her parents, to call. It backfired when you sent everybody copies of your logs, showing how heartless she had become. Even her side piece saw it and dumped her. Before I left, guess who showed up? On a Sunday even. I didn't think they worked on Sundays. Who? The guy who serves divorce papers, except it wasn't a guy. It was this college girl. I always thought process servers were former Marine drill sergeants or something. Anyway, it was priceless. Another pause. From the sounds of it, she was drinking a cola. You coming back? I wouldn't. She's crazy right now. Nope, I said. Divorce papers are signed on my end. She can contest them all she wants, but it's happening in spite of her. Lawyer thinks anything she tries will get thrown out because of the accounting. Why are you interested anyway? She ruined my new dress with your damned lasagna, she said. I'll never get the red sauce out. Not from imported silk. You know how much I paid for that? If I can twist the knife a little, you got it. Name's Brenda, the ex-BFF. She sent me a picture of a ruined cream-colored dress. To return the favor, just for sheer pettiness, spite, and a load of fun, I sent her all the pages of my accounting. Twist away, Brenda. Sleep was impossible now. I ran through the shower, salvaged some clean clothes, and hopped on the road. About 13 hours to Salt Lake City. I stopped at a diner in Evanston, Wyoming, and ordered Tuscan tomato bean soup with fresh bread and baked garlic croutons. I took time to wander around, admiring the towering Tetons, the smell of pine, the flurry of people, and all the trucks. The Tetons stood like exclamation points against the sky, stern and silent, beautiful in the way things are when they don't need your approval. The air smelled like sap and engine grease, fresh bread and truck stop coffee. I kept thinking, if I'd driven west just to breathe this in, it might have been enough. Back inside, the soup was hot, the bread crusty, and the croutons just shy of burning. Someone had drizzled olive oil across the bowl like it meant something. Maybe it did. It was the first real meal I'd had where Contessa didn't linger in the room, like perfume or rot. I texted Brenda one more time. Soup's amazing, so is silence. She didn't reply, and honestly, what was the point? By the time I got back in the car, the sun had pushed off the clouds like it had somewhere to be. I pulled onto the highway, Salt Lake City on the GPS, and Miranda Lambert still playing in my head, like she was narrating the whole damn journey. Windows cracked, wind in my teeth, car smelling faintly of lavender air freshener and old fries. And for the first time in years, the road didn't feel like something I had to survive. It felt like mine. Next stop, maybe forgiveness. For me, for staying with Contessa for so long. Definitely not for Contessa. She destroyed her 1,169 chances. I needed a room where I could sleep without checking my phone. Time for a fresh start. I pulled in Salt Lake City not knowing what to expect. The city was sheltered by mountains on the east, mountains on the west, the remains of the Great Salt Lake on the southwest, and houses and office buildings and warehouses and strip malls that stretched in between it all. It smelled of dust, car exhaust, and freedom. I had arrived around 6 p.m. on April the 18th, the sun blaring down amid freeways crowded with cars and trucks and semis and very few trees. They called it a desert, and it was brown like one. The tallest building was only 30 stories tall, with only a handful of comparable in height. Most were 5 stories or lower. It didn't feel like a city built for drama. Salt Lake was utilitarian, laid out in squares, muted colors, and long blocks like someone who needed space more than flair. I drove past chain restaurants and their famous temple, brick apartment buildings, and pickup trucks with dents driving the same streets as hand-polished Porsches. Nobody knew my name, and that felt perfect. I checked into the Monarch Imperial Hotel downtown. Ironically, the same place I transferred to. Why not? I get an employee discount. Room 512, 5th floor, mountain view if I squinted past the HVAC unit and the palm print on the window. The bed was made with military precision. The air smelled like lemon cleaner, and something faintly floral underneath. Lavender, maybe? Safe. Forgettable. I kicked off my shoes, lay down fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling while the AC clicked on. For a minute, I forgot what day it was. That felt like progress. By 8, I needed food and noise. I grabbed my notebook and walked 4 blocks to a retro breakfast diner with checkered floors and a sign that read, "Hotcakes, 24/7. Established 1957. Still serving it hot." A teenage hostess led me to a booth sticky with nostalgia. No menu item was bolded. I liked that. The waitress handed me coffee without asking and pointed toward the soup special. I didn't catch her name, just the chalkboard scrawl. Tuscan tomato bean soup. Comes with sourdough or croutons. Must be a thing in the West. I smiled. The world was still weird, still funny, still turning. And for the first time since Pittsburgh, I felt hungry. Really hungry. The kind of hunger that comes when you stop carrying someone else's weight. Also, lonely. It had been 6 months since I kept track of Contessa's cruel indifference. It had been longer. 6 months was only when I started tracking. I sipped my coffee, waiting for my pancakes. Did I even remember how to connect with anyone? I'd lost track of all my friends. I needed a friend to survive. The diner was packed. Only one person was alone. He sat at a table, phone set upside down, looking out the window as if staring into painful memories. He leaned back, mindlessly pushing around his pancakes with his fork. Blueberry pancakes with whipped cream and chocolate syrup. A gruff face. He'd broken his nose sometime in the past. A big guy, too, not fat, just muscular like a boxer or an MMA fighter. He kept his dark hair short, had a butterfly bandage covering a short cut on his left cheek, and a sudden smile that only quirked his left side. Glancing my way, he raised his coffee cup in salute. I raised mine, told the waitress to bring my order to his table, and walked over. "This seat taken? I'm Taylor Blair," I asked, sounding more confident than I felt. The man wore a black tee with the sleeves ripped off, a glare that punched like a speed bag, and shoulders like cinder block walls. He gestured to the bench opposite him and said, "Howard Rico, though they call me Rampage in the ring." He said the last bit with a sarcastic snort. "Story behind that?" I asked. The waitress set a stack of buckwheat pancakes in front of me, whipped cream, strawberries, blackberries, and a small pitcher of maple-flavored syrup. She refilled my coffee and left a small bowl of coffee creamers and sweeteners. I took 2 coconut sugar and added them to my coffee. I just got my butt handed to me, in front of my friends, clearly outclassed. Twitch wanted to climb into the ring and pound the guy into a pulp. Twitch knows karate. Howard smirked, but there was no humor in it. Grin even said I would win big tonight. Showed me some fancy card only he understands. We're frat bros, and we came up from Vegas along with Chaz. He slept with the wrong girl and came with us to escape her jealous boyfriend. Frat bros? You go to college together? What, I look too old? Doesn't matter, I'll be a junior next year. Howard finally took a bite, making sure he found a blueberry. Twitch brought his boyfriend. Grin is between boyfriends, again, and Chaz is straight but doesn't believe in commitment. Are you a gay frat? Sometimes it seems like it. Are you gay? He actually smiled, set the fork down and chuckled. No, Mr. Taylor Blair, love is rare and precious. When it happens, it happens. Who cares about the details? We were getting personal, but instead of shutting down, I was waking up. Do you have a boyfriend or girlfriend? I only date people I consider forever. I grew up in the foster system. My parents died in a plane crash when I was 2. I don't remember them. He sipped his coffee, set the mug on the table with a low thud. In the silence, he took a bite of the whipped cream, holding his fork like a forklift. I'm sorry about your parents, I said, more to fill the silence than to make conversation. He leaned back, his eyes locking on mine. What's your story, Mr. Taylor Blair of the sad eyes? His gaze held mine. I looked down at my pancakes, fork lightly trembling, and replied, leaving a marriage that ended in disaster months ago, but I never realized it. Divorce papers are served and waiting her signature. My turn to sip my coffee, still bitter, slightly burned. I added a third coconut sugar and continued. I guess I'm lonely. I was in Pittsburgh 3 days ago, and do you know what that place has in common with Salt Lake and even with Vegas, Mr. Howard Rico? Pittsburgh, Salt Lake, and Vegas have nothing in common, Howard said. I don't know anyone in any city. I was so busy dealing with Contessa, I lost track of my friends. Howard tapped his mug once against the table, a low clink of solidarity. Here's to leaving things that needed leaving. I nodded, even if they took years. He studied me for a beat longer, then went back to nudging his blueberries into Servy trenches. You know what Grin said when I lost the fight? I shook my head. The ding of victory, you won. Then he gave me a chocolate pudding cup and said, need to keep your blood sugar up. Remember to mind your manners. Deodorant would be good too. And don't use that scary stare you use in the arena. Damn guy never makes sense, but is always right. He always brings pudding cups lately, like we're still in grade school. Howard smiled again, that half smile, just on the left. And for the first time, it didn't look like it hurt him to do it. Manners? Deodorant? Ding of victory? I muttered, disbelieving. You have to know, Grin. You got people like that? He asked. Had, I said. Contessa turned them against me, one by one. I became her unpaid servant. Time for new friends. You just did, he muttered, like he was annoyed by showing emotion. Then, down in Vegas, Twitch teaches karate on the greens outside student services. You should come. Gets the ghosts out. I don't kickbox. Neither do most of the other people. You'll fit right in. After the diner, we walked the streets of downtown Salt Lake, found an art gallery with a display of cybernetic grunge pottery, passed a girl on guitar singing Whitney Houston songs, an empty guitar case in front of her littered with quarters and dollars, and somebody sketching caricature portraits. We walked through the City Creek Mall, pausing along the creek that ran through the middle of the mall, the actual City Creek. During our walk, Contessa kept texting. You've ruined my life. I didn't mean to hurt you. Thanks to your lies, everybody makes fun of me. Doesn't 5 years of marriage mean anything to you? Let's go to counseling. And the one that made me chuckle. My lawyer says you locked my half of the marital funds in a trust I can't touch until we're divorced. You can't do that. I responded, actually, I can. My lawyer calls it asset preservation during dissolution proceedings. I call it finally setting boundaries. Either way, the trust releases once the divorce is final. Tell your lawyer to read page 14 of the accounting. Footnote 3 has the statute reference. Pro tip, when you ignore 1,169 documented chances, you don't get to negotiate the exit terms. By pure coincidence, my phone found itself on Do Not Disturb mode. And then I let Howard read all her texts. Howard gave that cute half smile. Damn, she wasn't your forever. I told him about the accounting. He told me about the foster system. We walked. Nothing dramatic happened, only casual conversation that ended at my hotel. Do you want to come in? I asked, not sure what the fireflies in my stomach were trying to tell me. Once again, Howard blessed me with a half smile that promised fun. Thanks, but you're still married. I don't cheat. I bit back the unexplained disappointment. When do you head to Vegas? Tomorrow morning. Finals are coming up. Can I call you? Howard nodded at that and handed me his phone. I typed in my number and handed it back. He called me. Do you want to get a drink? I asked, my heart fluttering like it did when I asked Contessa out the first time. I pointed to the cheap-looking bar down the street. That I can do, Howard replied. We took a seat on the stools. Howard ordered a whiskey sour. A dark screwdriver, I ordered. The bartender lifted an eyebrow. I'm not familiar with it. I shrugged. It must be an East Coast thing. Orange juice, blood orange puree, dark rum, shaken together, poured over ice and topped with a slice of blood orange. The bartender gave me a curious glance, but said nothing, just mixed the drink like it was muscle memory. The glass clinked down on the counter, sweating under the bar's neon glow. I couldn't decide if it smelled more like orange or like rum. I took a sip, sweet up front, bitter after, like most of my life lately. Howard studied me over the rim of his whiskey sour. Good? It tastes like sunrise with a vendetta. Best thing to start a new life. He laughed, full-bodied, genuine, and for a moment, I forgot I was rebuilding from rubble. For a moment, I was just a guy at a bar, nursing a bruised orange drink with someone who didn't need an explanation. A 3-piece band in the corner began playing. The singer, a woman in her 30s and holding a dark guitar, took hold of the microphone. You've been great, ladies and gentlemen. Next, let's change the mood a little. This is a cover of Midnight in Harlem by Tedeschi Trucks Band. She had a sultry, earthy voice that dug deep into my soul. It spoke to me. I hadn't let myself feel. Nobody said that the price of freedom comes with mourning the could-have-beens. Why mourn my marriage now? I'd been doing that the last 6 months. Yet, I still ached. Outside, the streetlights flickered. Inside, I let the silence stretch long enough to feel it. The time for reliving the past was over. This wasn't about rebounds or forgetting. This was about starting, with a drink, a laugh, and a stranger who maybe didn't feel like one anymore. We left an hour later, promising to meet for breakfast. I watched him walk away, unsure of what was happening inside me. I turned my phone to normal mode, ignoring the 5 new texts from Contessa. As soon as I locked the hotel door behind me, I stripped out of my clothes, tossing them onto a chair. Sitting on the squeaky bed, I mindlessly flipped through channels, settling on an infomercial advertising Dr. Path's newest, best-selling, self-help book, The Reconnection Connection. Don't find the right person. Be the right person, even when you're wrong. And more engaging platitudes about creating the ideal marriage in 3 easy payments of $20.99, plus shipping and tax. Didn't online streams say he was going through a divorce, just like the rest of us? The bed cover was stiff, scratchy. The room smelled of glass cleaner and disinfectant, sterile and impersonal, like my marriage and my social life. Maybe I'm lonely, but I'm tired of living in the background. The hum of the AC clicked into a steady rhythm, soft and mechanical, the kind of sound that doesn't demand anything from you. I climbed between the cool sheets, arms behind my head, and let the quiet settle in. For the first time in forever, there were no voices to dodge, no performance to keep up, just the low, steady thrum of a hotel room that didn't know my name, and a body that finally didn't have to brace for a cruel remark. I breathed out, slow, no texts, no door slams, no packing the leftover dinner she didn't eat into the fridge. Just this, just quiet, just me. And the twang of an incoming call. I hope it's not Contessa. It wasn't. Hey, Howard. And I propped myself on my pillow, my soul smiling a little. Everybody's left me alone for the night. Oh, I mumbled. Chaz is checking out the nightlife. Gran is at some place called the Sun Trap, and I don't know where Twitch and his boyfriend are. We talked about nothing. About my divorce, about his job at the Capitol Arena back in Vegas, about finals. We talked until 3 a.m. At 9, I met Howard and the other frat boys at the same pancake house. They sat around a large circular booth, Howard at one end saving a seat for me next to him. As I approached, Howard stood. Everybody, this is Taylor, the man I told you about. Howard, you're even older than he is, a guy wearing a blue tee said. Skinny, but shifting a little. I'm only 24, I said, slipping into the seat next to a man in a rainbow tie-dye tee with a stack of tarot cards next to his plate. Shut up, Twitch, Howard replied. That's Twitch. The guy next to him is Neville, his boyfriend. The guy in the rainbow tie-dye is Grin. I do parties, Grin said, grinning. In a conspiratorial whisper, he added, By the way, may I recommend a spicy Calabrese pepperoni? It's the southernmost part of Italy. Think the toe of the boot. Neville glanced at Twitch. I don't get it. Twitch replied with a shrug. Nobody understands Grin, but he's always right. That's because the cards never lie. Taylor, do you want to pick a card? Grin pushed his plate back and fanned out his tarot cards. Don't do it, Twitch muttered. Howard rolled his eyes and ignored. The guy wearing the sunglasses and fighting a hangover is Chaz. She was a 3-beer woman, Chaz mumbled. Anyone bring a bottle of aspirin? Was that how many beers she had to drink before she said yes? Neville said. The waitress set down plates in front of all of us. Bacon, eggs, a stack of blueberry pancakes smothered with whipped cream, and a little pitcher of syrup for each of us. Do you remember her name this time? Twitch said, diving into his stack. I think it was Amber or Isabel. Dude, you're losing your touch, Howard said. Or going senile, I quipped. Twitch leaned across the table and fist bumped me. I scraped off the whipped cream on top of my stack to find a smiley face made out of blueberries. Nobody else had one. Grin only smiled, a mysterious smile like he knew it was coming. Somewhere between the third refill of coffee and a new debate about whether hot sauce belonged on eggs, Chaz said yes. Grin insisted only if the eggs have offended your ancestors. I realized this wasn't just breakfast. It was belonging. They left for Vegas right after breakfast. Howard grunted something about calling me later. Typical, understated affection wrapped in gravel. Meanwhile, Monday loomed. I needed an apartment, a bank, clean laundry, groceries, and I couldn't stop thinking about Howard. Boxer, foster kid, surprise philosopher, a man who listened without trying to fix me, who saw me. I found a one-bedroom I could move into in a week, close enough to walk to work, far enough that I didn't have to walk past the past. It even had a little balcony, like the world offering me a breath of fresh start. Of course, the view was of a car lot. Brenda had called one last time. Contessa had to move into a studio apartment in East Hills, complaining she can't afford anything without your paycheck. And those pages you sent me? I sent them to our entire friend group. She can't spin her way out of this. Later, I told myself not to call. The divorce wasn't final. This wasn't the right time. I called anyway. He picked up on the second ring. "You checking if we made it back in one piece?" Howard asked. That and I hesitated. I missed talking to you. So we talked for 2 hours that night, then again the next, and the next. At the grocery store, I found spicy Calabrese pepperoni, Howard's favorite. I laughed out loud right there in the aisle. Of course, Grin had been right. Last weekend, Contessa signed the divorce papers. No alimony. I let her keep whatever hadn't fit into my car. She could clutter her new place with all the furniture, knickknacks, clothes, and assorted junk. I had freedom. Last night, Howard and I stayed up until 2, talking. Howard had laid down on his bed back in Vegas. The rustle of the pillow faint on his phone. "You better not burn that lasagna. I've been dreaming about it since Salt Lake." A pause, then softer. "Also, I've been dreaming about sitting across from you again." I smiled, pretending to roll my eyes. "I'm making extra, in case you want to take leftovers back to Vegas." With a soft chuckle, Howard replied, "Maybe I don't want to go back." Another pause. He never says things like this lightly. "Or maybe I want you to come with me sometime. No pressure, just open road, good food, and someone who doesn't make me feel like I'm always bracing for a bunch." "I could pack my notebook," I whispered. "Pack 2, he said. "One for the recipes, one for whatever this is," he chuckled. "I don't have a word for it yet, but it feels good." It was late. I was comfortable. Maybe one glass too many, because I admitted, I think I've found my forever. Howard remained silent for a moment. My stomach churned. Maybe I'd gone too far, said too much. Quietly, he said, "Me too. We'll talk about it when I get there tomorrow. Don't worry about the wine." I hadn't been excited like this for months, maybe even a year or 2. When was the last time? The night had to be special. I made my famous pepperoni and sausage lasagna. No frat bros this time. No Twitch twirling kicks on the sidewalk. No Grin and his pudding cup prophecies. No Neville, no Chaz. Just Howard. Just me. And the lasagna. Our forever. The irony wasn't wasted. A lasagna had ended my last relationship, and now it was the promise of something incredible. The doorbell dinged. The ding of victory. Of course Grin knew. As soon as the door opened, Howard set 2 bottles of Chablis on the table, and we kissed like lovers who hadn't seen each other for 1,000 years. We'll end on a footnote. Howard and me loved the Taylor Swift concert. Thank you, friends, for stopping by. I'm Gio, your narrator. This story was something Copilot and I wove together, thread by thread. If you're curious, the recipe for pepperoni sausage lasagna is included in the video and in the description below. And for those of you who want to check out my other channel, Loud and Proud L3Q, you'll find the link there too. That's where I share short stories. The longer ones live here. I love you all. Peace, my friends.